just had to get a picture of that sky. Hi ladies and gentlemen, it's November 11th and it's getting a little later in the day. Actually it's evening, and so the lighting isn't quite what I would have liked, but I thought that I needed to say just a couple of things. Yes, I'm very happy that Trump won the election. Again, not so much because Trump is so special, but because of what he represents. The reawakening of America to its true roots, the idea of liberty and hard work and faith in God. And if not faith in God, then at least a morality. And some people would say, well, you can't have morality if you don't believe in God. But I don't believe in that, because God writes His Spirit into our hearts and minds. And some of us may not even really realize it. But be that as it may, it's our choices that matter. And so I was happy that the people of this nation may have awakened and realized that the symbol that Trump is, that they would rally around that, and basically a form of repentance, of a return to doing the right thing, especially holding our government accountable for what it does, holding it to the Constitution, which is for our protection. So, at any rate, I don't want to take away from the celebration, but you can see what's happening. Soros and other people, and probably Clinton's involved as well, but certainly the NWO at whatever levels, the international bankers, the deep state, are encouraging and financing, probably equipping, maybe even arming different groups around the country. And you know, it was really funny because the Southern Poverty Law Center and the MIAC report and all these different things, even the military saying that, you know, Christians are the real terrorists. Obama called us the bitter clingers, the Bible people, and the First and Second Amendment people. Christians, patriots, ex-military, veterans, constitutionalists, all are considered domestic terrorists. We can see who the real terrorists are, and I hope the police and the military are awake or awakening to the deceit that we have all been put under. Pointing fingers at the wrong enemy, you know, like this last thing during the election, saying Russia was doing all this stuff when it wasn't. That kind of thing. It's divide and conquer, and it's also to get your attention off the things that are really mattering, that really matter. So at any rate, I wanted to just address that, to let you know that Trump is not a panacea. We have to make sure that what he does is what he said he was going to do, at least the best of his ability. I mean, I realize there are a lot of limitations. He's got a big job ahead of him, but we've got to make sure that we stay on course. And frankly, in my own heart, I think that God's going to make sure that Trump does that to a very high level. But that doesn't mean that there isn't going to be a lot of difficulty. Like I said, we're seeing that now. We're still very close. We could turn into a civil war any day. I'm wearing this shirt. Some of you will recognize it from InfoWars. It's a Mullen Lobby shirt, but it says "Come and take it," because the right to self-protection, whether it's against a corrupt government or against a criminal or against an invader, is a fundamental human right, just as freedom of speech is. And these people that are trying to take these things away from us use all kinds of excuses to justify it, and none of them are justifiable. None of them. So anyway, where I want to go with this now is just, I wanted to point out something. Again, I said when I first started that I was really happy that the American people seem to be awakening, and that Trump won in a landslide with the Electoral College. And the Clintonites and those who supported her are saying, well, she got the most votes in the popular vote. Well, I'm not so sure that's the case, because so many of those votes were actually stolen votes, election fraud, voter fraud, those types of things. But even if that were true, I want to address that as an issue right now, because in many of my videos I've talked about that the American people aren't awake, that they're running to lies and to deceit. And again, I thought this election might show, well, people are waking up. Maybe the things that we've done, not just the alternative media, but good people like Chuck Baldwin, Pastor Chuck Baldwin, and folks like that have gotten the message out, and people are starting to realize the dangers that we're up against. But be that as it may, I ran across this, and I knew about the problem with the popular vote, even if it's stolen, okay? But it's still an issue. And I ran across this article by Michael Snyder. A lot of you will probably recognize that name. And I've included the link in the description box below. It's on freedomoutpost.com. And Michael Snyder wrote it, and this is the title. Did America really pass the test? Hillary Clinton is going to win the popular vote by a wide margin. Now, why is that important? Because my hope was that the American people, the majority of us, were awakening. The fact of the matter is that may not be the case. I may have jumped the gun on that, believing that that was in fact happening. In fact, it might not be. And his article here is very important to read to understand that. And the implication is that America is still running towards deceit and lies in one way or another. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And the same goes with truth and with righteous living and with morality and with the golden rule and all those things. It has to be a choice. And as I have said, and as many people like me have said, this is the time to choose. The evil is manifest for you to see. The good is there manifest for you to see. And you get to choose which. This is the great divide, and it's happening now. It really is happening now. This is a continuation of what was known as the war in heaven. And I'm not going to go into a whole big spiel on that here. My point is that we really do have to make a choice. And a lot of people have in this election, both sides. Even with that, if you believe in the biblical scriptures, if you study them, if you have any understanding of them at all, you'll know that after all this is done, there will still be a remnant. What's a remnant? It's a small part. Usually a part that, the rest of it's been used up, burned up, whatever. And you just have a small amount left. I don't want that. I don't want that much destruction to occur. I really don't. I want my brothers and sisters of all types to stand up, to be counted, and be on the right side. But I can't force that, and neither can anybody else. So we're going to have these people who choose to do evil. And they may not even know it, but they appeal. They have an appeal to that type of behavior, which is what? By their fruits you shall know them. So those of us who have chosen the perfect law of liberty, the Constitution, those types of things, we have to expect that there's going to be a counter to that. And it's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. Soros will make sure of that, right? Okay, there's one other thing I want to say before I close, and that is that God really does give us the benefit of the doubt so often. I'm going to tell you a story that I've told once before. Abraham was sitting by his tent one day, and he sees three personages coming towards him, and he recognizes that it's God and two of his angels. And he tells his wife Sarah, hey, go get some food ready, we've got some visitors. That's interesting too, if you think about it. But at any rate, the point of this story is that God tells Abraham that he's going to have a son, first of all, and Sarah laughs, and God says, why is she laughing? And he says, because she laughed, you will name the son Yitzhak, which means laughter, in case you didn't know that. But then another thing happened. Abraham says, well, what brings you over here? And he says, well, God says to him, well, I've been hearing all this stuff about Sodom and Gomorrah and how bad it is, and I've come to check it out for myself. And if it's true, I'm going to destroy it. And Abraham's thinking, I've got Lot there, my nephew, and his wife and his kids, and his entourage. wow, that's really bad. Plus, you know, Abraham did call on the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah during his quest to retrieve Lot from being taken as a prisoner of war. And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah basically helped in that. So Abraham had solicited their assistance to some extent, and even gave them the booty after the war was over, the spoil. But the important thing here is this. God said he's going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham says, well, if there are 50 people there, will you spare it? And God said, okay, for you, Abraham, I'll do that. If 50 are there, I'll spare it. And he works down, remember, 40, 30, 20. And then finally he says, please, if I find favor with you, I don't want to make you angry, but if there are 10 righteous there, will you not destroy it? And God says, I will not. What's my point? He did end up destroying it, of course, because he couldn't even find 10 there. But my point is that if we are, in fact, at 50% of the people awake, and I'm not sure it's that, but if we are, then we've got a chance. Okay, we've got a chance. God will stay that judgment for the 50% sake, for the 40% sake, for the 30%. And it wasn't percentages in Abraham's thing. I did some math on that once in a video and showed you what that would be, but that's not important here. The important thing is that God is patient as long as we're making an effort. So maybe we've averted a really serious judgment here. It's not over with yet, as I've said. But let's stay vigilant. Let's be ready. I don't want to go, to the next level on this. I don't. No, none of the veterans do either. But if this other side is going to threaten us, like they are a lot of our people right now, injuring them, threatening to kill them, possibly will band together in bands and start some really bad stuff. Who knows what side the police and the military are going to fall on? I hear a lot of commentators say, oh, they're more awake than anybody else. Well, yeah, but when the pressure's on, what's going to happen? It's going to be back down to the individuals, protecting themselves from evil. And that's really what it is. So prepare, get your friends together that you can trust, get your water, your food. My old mantra about preparing, and I always talk about that. Okay, so again, Trump is not a panacea. He's not the end all. He's a symbol of the awakening of the human people, the Americans in particular. Human people. I didn't say that by accident. There's a reason for that, but I won't go there either. Let's make the right decision and be aware that things could still go awry. Very dangerous. But I thank Trump and his family for being willing to stand in this position. It's dangerous, it's difficult. The ridicule, the hatred, the deceit that's going on to try to hurt him and his family and those that are supporting him, it's a big position. When he came out to give his victory speech, I just want to mention this and I'll close. He's a hard fighter. He's a man. He's an alpha male. He's very strong. But look at his eyes during his victory speech, especially when he first walks out with his family. Look at how soft and humble those eyes are. Almost wants to make me cry. He understands the weight of what he's taken upon himself. And he must have a lot of faith